Hi guys, I am hoping that this live does not malfunction. I've gone through some malfunctioning lives lately. Hold on one second. I'm gonna actually put on, I thought I wanted to listen to this. I don't. I'm gonna put on something a little more soothing. Okay, that's what I want to listen to. Alright, so my YouTube, let me just check who's in here because I can't tell. My YouTube is pinned. Please check it out. I've been documenting my journey with being gang stalked, being harassed, being followed everywhere. Somebody named John Ferreira, who I have not known before in my life, decided that he wanted to, well, he didn't decide, he was paid. He was paid by an organization to knock me out of my own life, unfortunately. It has been everything from scary. I've been in disbelief. I've had to acclimatize to the situation very quickly, and I've had to figure out what to do. In the course of the 1.5 years, I have come to realize that a number of things. But I'm not the only person who has gone through this, is going through this. This is what his business is built on. I call them destroyers for hire. They essentially are hired by people and they use whatever means they can to knock you out of your life. So what happened to me was I was approached to be a drug mule. And all the normal ways were not working. So approaching me and trying to be friends with me and inviting me on trips and stuff like that, that didn't work. So then what they felt like doing is, well, we're going to knock you out of your life. We're going to take away your house, take away your business, take away your stability, take away everything from you. And then you're going to have no choice but to, join whatever we're in. And part of doing all of that, you would not believe how skilled people are at doing that kind of stuff. So part of doing all of that was they decided to put me into a smear campaign. Boy, I feel like I understand now what celebrities kind of go through. In the same way that you're built up by the media is the same way that they claw you down. And, I've spent my life where all the evidence shows that I've never stolen, I've never done anything illegal to make money, I've never robbed anyone, I've never treated anyone poorly. In fact, what I have done, which hasn't been good, which I'm changing, is I've put up with a lot of nonsense from people. I've been a person who's been too nice. I've been a person who hasn't had boundaries. And that's something that I have changed during the course of everything that's gone on. I speak up for myself now. If I have to get angry and I have to get enraged at someone, I will. I will say what's on my chest, This is not something I enjoy doing, which is why I never did it a lot before. But it's necessary for people to understand, not to play with me. And so the other part of it, I always spend a lot of my time talking about, or in the beginning, I've spent a lot of my time talking about the process of gang stalking and what they did. And they've hacked my emails and they've hacked my phone and cars follow me everywhere. And I also like to give back to the online gang stalking community, which is why I have a YouTube now. Let me actually just make sure I pin this comment. Yes, I did with my YouTube, which is why I talk to, I give a lot of help and I give back in how I've survived it and how I've overcome it. And I constantly tell people look I had to be very emotionally balanced. I had to do a lot of breathing. I'm not just talking about meditation only, this music here playing, it's just naturally calming, but I'm talking about I had to calm my nervous system down. I did a lot of praying, and I always say that I only got through the situation because of God. And whoever you think is God, you think is the only God. right? But I do believe, that I serve the Most High. And I know that there are other gods, but I do believe I serve the Most High. I call her mother, because she's a feminine energy. She's very nurturing. She embodies the highest, what I feel from her is the embodiment of the highest version of femininity. Nurturing, unconditional love, compassion, however, very strong boundaries, very firm, very powerful, because we tend to think that women are not powerful. We tend to think that women are weak, and we are far from. And I've been taught in this process that I've gone through how powerful I am as a woman. What I'm going to talk about today is something that I think the people who are attacking me are very curious about, or have been very desperate to find out about. How did they find themselves in this situation? And I'm going to talk about the spiritual component of it. And here's the thing, going to the police and, doing all of this while knowing that there's a big spiritual component of what's going on. I know that they're going to try to use my spirituality against me, because they are going to say that my beliefs are different. There are many people that believe that God is a woman. There are many people that are spiritual, and I've had to come to that myself. I'm like, you know what? In order to pass someone off as being not mentally sound, there are checks and balances that someone needs to go through to be able to say, like, you're not mentally okay. So are you making wise decisions? Obviously, I'm sure they have multiple tests that they put people through, but obviously the way that you're coming off and what you're talking about. But when it comes to spirituality and spiritual beliefs, especially the kind of beliefs that I hold, because I'm not Christian, I know that there are going to be people, especially in court, especially in those type of situations, that are going to challenge what I'm saying. They're going to say, well, how can you believe in that stuff? It is what it is. That's a road we're going to have to cross, because while I was going through this thing, I just knew one thing. I didn't know much. Well, I knew a lot, to be honest with you. I probably knew a lot more than people thought I knew. But I knew that I was never going to deny God, and I was never going to deny Mother, and I was never going to pretend like, she doesn't exist just to fit in with people. That wasn't what was going to happen. I feel really strongly about people understanding exactly who God is. And to touch upon that, I'm going to get into what I'm saying, but very quickly. God doesn't require perfection of people the way religion makes you think that God does. God does not require for people to be, never get angry. In fact, before I came on here, I was just pissed off at my kids. I was just yelling. It's Saturday morning. If I don't wake up, it's like they don't want to wake up. If I don't say let's clean, it's like the house is not going to be clean. I got to say on Sunday, like, hey, the house is going to have to be clean because we have to start a fresh week. Now, I used to let a lot of things go when we used to work 60, 70 hours a week. Sometimes more. I shudder to think about it. But when I used to work that much, I used to be too tired. But it's like, hey, we got to clean this house. And you got to freak out because, your kids are different. I have two. Different kids are different. And you got to get in there behind for little small things. So, the person that I was before, I was very much in my Zen sort of era, is what I want to call it, where meditation helped me a lot to balance my energy, to balance things that I wasn't happy with. And then because I was walking around very meditated and enjoying that feeling, I didn't want to be upset. I didn't want to get angry. I didn't want to be annoyed. I didn't want to be at odds with people. So I probably acquiesced a bit too much. And I let people get away with murder all the time just so that I wouldn't have to be upset at things that were happening, whether that be customers, whether that be vendors, whether that be whoever. And so I was met at a time where I was just letting too much things get away. And I'm happy to be out of that phase. And one of the things that God has told me is that your anger is sacred. And this is one of the things that I want to share with other people as well, that are listening to me, that are going through gang stalking. They always seem to be very calm people. These are not people that are freaking out, lashing out in the comments, cussing and carrying on. These are very calm people. And so I think they find people that are very calm and that let a lot of things slide. And so that's a message, first of all, that I want to pass on to you if you're watching, is that your anger is sacred. And you cannot just let people just be getting away with murder with you and taking away from you your life and everything that you've built and everything that you've worked hard for. And to the contrary, there's going to be a day where you find yourself feeling not an ounce of guilt for standing up for yourself. This is where I feel today. I feel not an ounce of guilt, because that's really what it is. You feel guilty about, being upset with people and whatnot. It's what you're supposed to do. It's a healthy behavior. It's a healthy behavior. So that is something that is supposed to happen. That's number one. I want to talk about John Ferreira and this gang and what they do. I've called them before destroyers for hire, because that is exactly who they are. They destroy your life for a fee. But what happens where, and I'm talking about my specific, well, actually, I don't have to talk about my specific case, but I'll list in my story as well, because I was being recruited to be a drug mule. What happens in these situations is, and I'm going to try to merge spirituality with reality so that it makes sense for people who don't necessarily believe in the same things that I believe in. When I talk about stealing someone's destiny, what I mean is that I believe that there are things that we are meant to do. Not just that things that we're good at and things that we more than likely could do. I mean that there are things we are meant to do, all of us. All of us have a role. And all of our roles are not good, believe it or not. If you think about a game, there's different characters in a game, right? Like, there are obviously the good characters. There's a protagonist. There's an antagonist. That's how it goes. There needs to be conflict. That's how you learn lessons. There needs to be pressure. There needs to be an opposing force. But what happens is this group, they specifically seek out people. And again, just follow along with me for the spiritual component. They specifically seek out people who are meant for something great. Specifically. And I've talked about that in one of my first couple of videos. These are the people that they seek out. So through divination, through whatever methods, they kind of, spiritually we call it the Akashic Records. And it's basically almost like an eternal library of your life. Who you were in past lives, who you're going to be in future lives, what you're meant to do in this lifetime. And they find people who have something that is worth taking. And then they bind these people to binding contracts where these people can't move. These people are stagnated. Let me see if I can find it in the deck while I'm here. These people are stagnated on their life path, so they don't move. They don't move into their destiny. They just rot. They just sit in the same spot spiritually. Here it is. It's right here. This is the death card in the tarot. And this card, when upright, means a closing of a cycle. You have to keep going through cycles in order to get where you have to go. I've just completed a cycle. I could not get to the next cycle without completing this cycle. I had to learn every single lesson that I had to learn in order to be ready for or to be able to handle the next thing coming in my life. I could not have been defeated in this cycle and graduated to the next. So then the death card would have been reversed like this. And when it's reversed like this, it represents staying in the same spot. It represents rot. It represents not moving forward. Because life is just cycles. And death is just transformation, is just the evolution of one state of being to another state of being. That's all death is. We tend to see death as evil, but death is not evil. Death and life are the same thing, because in order to get new life, you have to die. A part of you has to die. The old you has to die. So what happened here is, and I'm going to continue referring to it as stealing destiny so people can understand that. What happened here is John Ferreira and this group that he is with, what they do by, whether it's putting people into the cartel or putting people or taking away where people are in life, so knocking them back to a previous version of themselves, meaning they're starting with no money, they're starting back from a business that they're taking away the entire business, stealing the business from them, stealing the idea, so they have to build something either new or they have to try to build something entirely, taking away from them the person that they're supposed to be with, the love of their life, all of these things. What happens when you do that is, where a person is supposed to be at a certain time, in the future, they are not. So look at it this way. Say, for example, you're supposed to find a cure to cancer. Okay? We're in 2024. You're supposed to find this cure to cancer in 2020, let's call it 2025, 2030, to keep it simple. You're supposed to find a cure to cancer. And all they see out of this situation, when they read the records, they don't care about that you're supposed to find a cure to cancer. They just see that you're a person who's going to win a Nobel Peace Prize. And they just see that this Nobel Peace Prize, this cure to cancer, you're going to get it patented with a medical company, and it's going to be worth billions. And that's all they see, and that's all they care about. They don't need to read beyond that. I'm telling you, this character does not need to read beyond that. They're just like, oh, this person's going to be a billionaire and they're going to be famous. They're going to get a Nobel Peace Prize. Amazing. That's all we need to know. And so they come after you and they take this destiny from you. They just want the money. That's what they want to harvest out of it. So how are you going to do it? You're going to do it through, for me, you're going to do it through your clothing business. Okay, well, we need to knock the clothing business out of your hands and we need to take it over for ourselves. If I can't do the clothing business myself as a man, then I'm going to get somebody else to do it. And this is how we're going to make a fortune, and we're all going to share it, and we're going to live happily ever after. The problem is that God really sifts and sorts between people of who is going to be the person that gets to have this cure or develop this cure. This person needs to pass certain tests emotionally, spiritually, whether they're spiritual or not, before they get there. This person's heart needs to be tested. Are they going to be the kind of person who's going to sell this cure to the highest bidder and then it gets buried and it never comes out? Or do they have enough fight in them and enough integrity that they're going to go ahead and make sure that this cure gets to the public? And when they do get the money's not going to go to buying Lamborghinis and cars and despising the poor. The money is going to go to the kids in Africa that can't afford, the medication, the kids in India, the kids in Asia, the kids all over the world. It's going to go to the elderly. It's going to go to the places where people can be helped. And they're going to, the powers that be, spiritually, the Most High is going to look at someone's heart and someone's soul, and they're going to say, this person is going to put their life and their safety on the line to fight to make sure that this cure gets to where it's supposed to go. So imagine if you get to 2030 and the person who was supposed to find the cure to cancer or to whatever unspeakable disease, let's say, that develops is not there. Then this is how you change the trajectory of history, by being greedy. And this is why it is not just about money. It's not just about greed. It is about destroying destinies and stealing from God and altering the way that God wants things to go. I'll give you an example. During everything that I was going through, there were particular songs that spoke to me. The people that were singing the songs, I would not necessarily describe these people as spiritual people. These people probably live all kinds of lifestyles. But when I listen to these songs, I know God was in the studio with this person. I'm like, there is absolutely no way God had a hand in recording this song, for sure. And so sometimes you'll never know. It'll be a song that'll inspire you, that'll give you strength to get through the kind of tough cycle that I went through. So can you imagine if the person who made that song was not where they were supposed to be at the right time? And it can be as small as that. It really can. It absolutely can be as small as that, as trivial as that. So I look at people who I can see whose destinies were stolen and who've never gotten to actualize the careers that they were supposed to have and the gifts that they were supposed to have. There's this singer in Toronto, Layla Day. I know that her destiny was absolutely taken from her. She's in a situation of rot. I know that because right at the time where she was getting to go where she needed to go, things stopped. So when you're being gang stalked, and when you're being, whatever you was going for you is being interrupted, it is more than just being gang stalked and having things taken away. There is a spiritual component to what is happening to you. And that is what I'm going to talk about today. The spiritual component of what is happening to you. So this is what they were attempting to do to myself. So I'm going to describe it to you how the tarot readers describe it. It's almost like you have a contract with the universe. And in that contract with the universe, you cannot sign it before a certain date, before a certain time. So they look into your records and they say, oh, at this time is the time this person's supposed to sign their spiritual contract. And we have this much time after they sign the contract to knock them off of their path where it will be possible to steal this contract. And so what they did was they made my life a living hell. A living hell to push me out of my business, to push me out of my life, to push me out of my home, to push me out of everything that made me me, in order to take that from me. Now, I don't know if the other people knew that was what was happening, but I would say I'm pretty sure John Ferreira knew that that is what was happening. I'm pretty sure this was the plan all along. And so the way that they're going to take the money is not going to be the same way you're going to make the money. Like, you're going to make the money in whatever way the Most High wants you to make it. But they're going to take it and they're going to make it through you by you being a drug mule. Or through you by getting rid of you. Pushing you out of your life. Now you're homeless. Now you live on the streets. Now you don't do anything. Now you have no purpose. You know, and that's what's going to happen to you. And then they can go and they can take your gift. They can take the contract given to the Most High. And they can go ahead and actualize it for themselves and split it. So these people are probably wondering, like, okay, so many of them came up against me because they saw that this was something that was very close to God. And a whole bunch of them came up against me at once because a bunch of them had to pile up against me. This wasn't, and they were relentless. They were not going to stop. And this meant enough to them that John Ferreira was happy to put himself in a position In the readings, they say he martyred himself, but he was happy to put himself in a position where he didn't care if he put his own life on the line. I think he didn't care if he had to sacrifice children, if he had to what relationships he had to sacrifice. I don't think they care, because it was worth it. It was worth it to them, is how I feel. So, the first things first is he's been doing this for a long time. And I've talked all along about God putting a spiritual hit on this individual and needing to get this individual out of here. But he had protection. You see, there's places where the Most High will not go, because I'm going to just say it's unclean, it's unsavory. And the kind of things that these people dive into, the kind of people that end up in these situations, they know no God. And so there's places where God, the Most High herself is not going to find herself in there. So it turned out to be me that was going to find myself in these people's personal space, in their labyrinth is what I call it, which is their little maze that they trap people in, that they're going to send me in. And I'm going to look helpless, and I'm going to look just out there, a sitting duck, at risk, vulnerable. And in order to see up close what he's doing, I needed to be there. I needed to be right there. So the first thing that they had to do to get rid of that protection, obviously, is I had to be dangled in his face. And that happened through the connection with my ex, because my ex was already in there, helpless, couldn't get out, just blinded. And so I get with my ex, I get in there, and the minute I get with my ex, I'm thinking, yeah, somebody's working on this guy. I always came this close, always to saying to him, like, listen, you need to go get yourself like cleansed, because there's something on your spirit. There's something on your energy. I've never seen a person with this type of luck. Like, it's kind of scary. But anyway, I never did. For whatever reason, I never did until the very end. And every time I would try, he wouldn't entertain that conversation. And and there was one time I was typing it on WhatsApp and I deleted it. I deleted the message. I didn't say anything. But I always felt that there was something going on spiritually, and I always felt that there was something very dark and demonic around him, and I would always feel that presence. So these people, I know, if they're dealing with these kind of contracts, if they're dealing with these kind of organizations, and this guy is doing this kind of stuff he does, I'm pretty sure he looked into me spiritually. And so, like the tarot readers always say, he became very obsessed with whatever it was, with why it was that my ex and I always seemed to have a bond with each other, why we seemed to, why it seemed so hard to break up that relationship, and it wasn't as hard to break up other relationships that they had encountered before. So this was something that they began getting obsessed with, and this is where they got enticed to steal the spiritual contract. Now, from what another reader had said, she said that this was something that John was doing before, but he had promised himself, he had asked God and said that he would not do this anymore. That's what this reader has says. And then you have to listen to a lot of readings, and you got to do a lot of research to kind of put up a story together. It's taking me a long time. And so what they said is, whoever it is that he's with, this woman convinced him that he still had it in him and that he could do it, that he could steal the spiritual contract, even though he might have been in doubt, and even though he might have felt this is probably a bad idea. And even though he knew that he said that this was something he probably wouldn't do again. I'm giving you what tarot readers have said. That's what I'm saying. But I think the job that he originally had to do was to break us up as a couple and call it a day. That was it. He wasn't supposed to be going and stealing contracts and doing all of this. So the idea that they got is, if my ex and I have a spiritual contract that's very special, that they would steal the contract from me, and that the woman he's with would get that contract as a divine feminine, and then he would cloak in my ex's energy as a divine masculine. What I mean is cloaking in someone's energy is appearing spiritually as that person, stealing that person's aura. And so whatever blessings are coming in from that person, you can steal it. Now, this is not something that I can do myself, so I cannot give you guys the technical knowledge of how this is done. I couldn't tell you that. Again, I don't do spell work, but I know about these things, so I can talk about it. Anyway, the first step was he had to be enticed to steal the contract. So he did it. He cloaked in my ex's energy. The second thing he had to do, obviously they did the divination like I was talking about. Now, spiritual contracts are like other contracts, okay? It's not just one component to this contract. And like I said, I really feel like they only just saw the money and they didn't see the rest of it. Because I think that if they saw the rest of it, they would not. They would have thought twice. They would have thought twice about what that entails and why you would want to be a part of that. So, in this contract, there are different components, there are different parts of it. Anytime you work for God, there are things that you have to put up with that are terrifying. So, things like, you're going to be highly hated, possibly the most hated. Do you not see what they did to Jesus? He was crucified. Jesus was crucified on a cross and betrayed by the very disciples that were supposed to help. So, you want this contract, you're going to be the most hated. That's number one. Perpetual spiritual attacks. If you have this kind of a contract, you're going to be under heavy spiritual attack all the time. It is a very heavy load to carry. It is the kind of contract that you really only want to go through if you have a very intense love for God. Because otherwise, my friend, there is no amount of money that you really, I'm telling you, going through these spiritual contracts, I was saying to God verbatim, like, look, I understand, like, you're saying there's a reward and all that. This is a lot. This is a lot to go through for some money. No matter how rich you want to be. And I'm not even a person who really cares about being rich like that. Even, I've always said, you know, some people just want to be comfortable and that's successful to them. Have a peaceful life, have love, have a beautiful family. That's enough because they understand what comes with certain lifestyles. The spiritual attacks are not just, they're not normal attacks. We're talking about demonic attacks. We're talking about round the clock. We're talking about being extremely valuable to lower entities. Like they just want you. Okay? I felt what that felt like going through what I was going through. It's an obsession that cannot be explained. Okay? You're in battle, you're in war all the time with lower dimensional forces. You're at war. They want your vessel, they want your mind, they want your body. You are at war for your own life, your own body. That's what comes with those contracts. You have enemies everywhere. You have enemies everywhere. You have to watch your back. It's a very scary existence to live. You get a spiritual counterpart to help you through this life, but it's a very lonely life. That's part of the contract. You got to be alone. It is a lonely life. Because if you have enemies everywhere, it is a lonely life. So if you are an extrovert, or if you are a person who needs to have constant stimulation by being around people, it doesn't work for you. You're completely isolated. You have to isolate. You have to constantly feel like you're living on the run. But one of the most important parts of this contract is that you cannot attack, your divine counterpart. these kind of rules, there are a ton of rules to it, and there are more rules, but I'm going to talk about this one. This kind of spiritual contract, if you, that's your whole purpose, is to protect your divine counterpart. And so if you attack them, imagine not protecting them is already a violation of it, but by attacking them, you nullify the contract and you nullify the protection. So you still have the cloaking of being this spiritual being that everybody wants to take out, but you don't have any protection, because the protection comes from the Most High, because it's a divine contract. So the first step was how to get him away from the protection. So we talked about dangling the contract in front of him, because from where he was standing, you can't get to him, you can't get close enough. We needed to bring him into the fold. We need to bring him into the family. Like how they wanted to get me into their family, we needed to bring him into our family. And so he stole the contract. So now he's in the family. He's our ward. But he doesn't have protection because of the way that he behaves. Now, he has a contract of his own, him and the woman that he's with. And those kind of karmic contracts, you are allowed to be karmic. You are allowed to be evil, because that is the role that you play in the game. So to explain that, when I was younger, and this happened to me from a child, I never got to get older. I'm talking about just like, if I lied, I was getting caught. If I took something, my conscience beating me up was so bad that it was worse than getting caught. Like there was a time I got caught and it was a relief. Me getting in trouble, it's like, oh my God, let me get this over with. Me getting in trouble, all of that was a relief. And I came to a point, maybe I was like 8 or 9 years old. I was like, listen, I can't be lying and be out here doing crazy stuff. It doesn't work for me. If I go out there and I do something, I feel like I'm going to get caught. My luck is no good. It's just no good when it comes to stuff like that. And then I look at people like John Ferreira, and they get away with it every day for years. They get away with doing things in plain sight all the time, and that is because they're in their correct role. That is the role that they were meant to play. It doesn't mean they're going to play that role for forever, but in playing that role, it all works together in the way that God wants life to unfold. People will learn lessons, people will go through their ascension, things will happen just by them playing their role. Everybody has a purpose, but he didn't like his purpose. Him and her, because there's another counterpart there. They did not like their purpose. They wanted divine purpose, divine protection. They needed to see me up close and how things work out for me. So I was always under the impression, and I could hear it in my mind sometimes, where if somebody came by and something worked out for me, or it's like I could hear him saying, see, everything works for her. It's almost like he needed to see that Midas touch. He needed to be close enough for him to be convinced that this was worth taking, that this was worth stealing. It wasn't just about, maybe it might have started about money, but it wasn't just about money. It was about how nothing bad happens to you. It was about just things constantly working out for you, people loving you. That was one that I know for sure that was very enticing for him. Is John's of the opinion that everybody loves me, and that everywhere I go, everybody I talk to, it's always going to be perfect. Well, he doesn't understand the amount of emotional work that it took to get here. I have not always been like this. I had a lot of things to work on to get here. I was not always likable, and I had to see myself for who I am and look back and say, oh my God, that's not nice. I was very critical, and I always wanted to fix people. So it's like, it's coming from a good intention of wanting to fix people, but it's coming off very abrasive. And I used to think just because I'm telling the truth that it's fine because I'm telling the truth. The truth is the truth. People need to know. And then I used to feel justified in the way that I used to tell someone, well, you should lose weight. You should do this. You should do that. And it took a lot of work and a lot of being humble for me to get to a place to say, no, it's okay for someone to be overweight. If that's the journey that they're on, they're going to need their time. And so when people came around me, they would notice that I'm very accepting. So even if a girl was, you know, if you come around me and you're a stripper or you're a drug dealer or you're a whatever, I'm not going to shun you, because I started to realize that we all have our own time where we come to our own conclusions and things make sense for us and we make the necessary changes at the necessary time. And I'm not the one, and my advice is not what's going to change someone. It's someone wanting to change. It's someone seeing that they need to change. So I've been very accepting, and I'm very kind, and I'm very all of these things that people see out of hard work, out of falling out of not getting along with people, out of being ostracized at jobs. I've gone through all of that in order to get to where I am today. But he wanted that without going through any of the shadow work. It sucks seeing yourself. It sucks looking at yourself and being like, my God, I can work on that. And I still have tons of things that I can work on. And that's coming from someone who has a lot of Virgo placements in their charts. I used to really think perfection was possible, and I was working really hard at it. It's not. I can come to that conclusion today. I must be really evolved, because I truly believe that it's not possible, but I don't need it. I don't need to be perfect. Nobody needs to be perfect. Nobody needs to be seen as perfect either. But anyway, they didn't see the rest of what came with the contract. They did not see that stuff at all. So they stole these contracts. Like, I mean, I've seen him ethically. I've seen what he looks like. He stole that contract. He did. The thing about it is, once you start putting on that armor, I'm gonna call it, I'm not gonna call it armor, but that persona. Once you take that spiritually, you look like someone that you're not. You take on someone's essence, let's call it. The attacks and stuff, they start coming, and they start coming wild and fast. You have no idea what it's like to be me. You just see it handled with grace and with class. But behind the scene, they got to see with gang stalking how I was being gang stalked within an inch of my life, and how I showed up every day in a very elegant way, saying good morning, good night to people, and treating people very well. They got to see what it's like on both sides, behind all the bombs going off and how I present. Listen, so the Most High knew that once they got into that aura, they would start being spiritually attacked, and so they needed to be binded to that agreement as well, because he would come out of it as soon as he sees that it's not all it's cracked up to be. He would. That's where he got cornered. He got cornered in his agreements with the cartel, and he got cornered with the entity that he made the promise to, that he would get this done, and he let that entity ride him. And this is how it had to work out. This is how it had to play out. So he got binded, and he can't uncloak from that presence that he's in, that is not him. Now, when he's John Ferreira, he's allowed to use black magic. He's allowed to call on entities. He's allowed to have entities ride him, which he has in the past, and it's been fine. But as John Garcia, it's not possible. It doesn't work. You relinquish your gifts with that contract. The things that used to work before do not work now. They don't work now. Your role in the game is no longer to be evil. You're supposed to serve the Most High. but you've also nullified yourself on that side as well. You see that the spirit world is going to honor what you say. It's going to honor it, that this is who you say you are, but you're also attacking your counterpart. And so they're sending attacks to me while I'm transforming out of my old self. So once I've evolved into my new self, the person who took on my essence and my aura is receiving all the attacks. And so as she sends attacks out, they're not reaching me. You can't have both. You gotta have one. You gotta pick one. You can't be both characters, especially when you're binded to one. And so why is that entity so obsessively holding on to him? It's because that's what it wanted. But the thing is, they've binded themselves to unevolved versions of a divine feminine or divine masculine. Unevolved, not yet in contract, not yet ready to receive fully what they're supposed to receive. So had we remained our old selves in those old bodies, the attacks would be relentless as time went on. We needed to learn our lessons. We needed to grow. We needed to be strong. We needed to learn how to fight. We needed to accept our gifts. So there's a lot of things that you won't get when you're not ready. So there are two people binded to situations spiritually with no protection whatsoever, to things that they cannot remotely handle, and they have no protection on either side. Not in heaven, not in hell, and most certainly not here on earth. This is how it works. It is scary to be a divine being. It is not for the weak. It is not for the weak. So these people are stuck between worlds. And I kept hearing that in the tarot readings, and it took it took a while to understand what they meant by stuck between worlds. On one hand, they're binded to an agreement to lower entities to bring something in that they cannot bring in, because what they want to bring in does not exist anymore. The contract is unfulfillable. And on the other hand, they're binded into a spiritual contract that says, this is what God wants. You're supposed to be helping people. You're supposed to be tapped into the Most High. You're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be doing that. And that work is very difficult, and with it comes protection. And they don't have any of that. They're binded to two contracts, and they cannot fill either one. Either one. Now, the other thing about that is the infection. We had to wait. And this is something, you see, they always say, oh, I was lucky to have tarot readings. If I had to depend on tarot alone, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. There are things that I knew for a long time, but you can't speak on everything that you know. I knew about that spiritual hit for a long time, but I had to wait until I heard it in readings for me to say anything about it. I was like, there is no way this is just about me. There's no way, with the way that it was playing out. Anyway, where was I? Infection. I was watching these people get every single spiritualist that they could think of involved in this thing. I was watching it. Why was I watching it? Because I was feeling it. I was feeling different spiritual energies attack me. And I classified by country, but also there's different kinds of work that I was feeling. And you feel the different kinds of work. Like, I'm not going to go into it and explain it now. Maybe there's going to be a day where it's going to be worth explaining, but I can feel different work. And I now have to learn, how do I clear different things? How can I make sure that different things don't even come to me, much less for me to have to clean it off? Because boy, I tell you, if you wait to clean off certain things, it's a big cleanup job. So I had to figure out, like, how do I not let it get so bad? And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm also seeing that sometimes I could tell what's sent to me based on how it's hitting other people. But they got a whole bunch of people involved. Whether these were spiritualists that got involved or people slandering me and my brand. Because that's another thing people don't know. When you speak ill of people, it can change their life. It could change their destiny. It could change what's coming for them. So people were speaking that stuff over my life. People joined in this whole smear campaign. They all hated me for no reason. They didn't even care to ask why, and everybody got involved. So the slanderers, the gang stalkers, the people following me and persecuting me, the people who stood by and didn't help, the people who came to befriend me to find out information, the people they kept sending in the store to purchase things, their friends, their family, their children. And when your karma is so bad, literally people just being around you will get bad karma just because they're around you. They don't have to do anything. People that kill people just by being around other people, these people are going to find themselves sharing in that same type of horrific karma. By accepting money and gifts and favors from people who have heavy karma, it's all the same thing. So we had to wait until they involved as many people as humanly possible, because it was a cleanup job. There were people that needed to get up out of here, no matter like how we put it. So that was also part of what John Ferreira and friends were destined to do, is to go ahead and do a cleanup job. People don't understand when you talk about like magic, how easy magic is. Magic is energy, okay? So if you speak ill of people, if somebody's supposed to get an opportunity for a job and you go to that job and you say something bad and they don't get it, that is magic. Simple as that. People always think it's potions and all of this stuff and it has to be complex. It's that simple. Having sexual thoughts about someone calls that person into your energy. It's that simple. So people don't understand that everybody practices magic every day. When someone pops into your head, when a song reminds you of someone, all of it is magic. So why are we sitting here as Christians, as Jews, as Muslims, as whatever, demonizing one practice from another practice when we are all magic? We are magic. We are magic. So it doesn't matter who you worship, if you worship Buddha or Ganesha or Jesus or Lucifer. It is all tapping into energy. And everybody does it every single day without knowing. They just don't know how to control it. There's just no process to it. There's no ritual to it. But it's just spitfire and accidental. You just don't know your power. So they don't want you to know. People don't want you to know your power. People who want power over you do not want you to know your power. They didn't want me to know my power. But I already knew my power by the time they got there. So there's nothing that they could have done. I knew my power for years before they got there. God has been working a very, very long time for me, and I've seen it in real time. Like to the point where I cannot let all the work that I've done slip just because I know how much work has gone into getting me here, into the kind of human being that I am. And people think that a lot of what you gain out of life is monetary or like physical possessions and all of that. But you're powerful. I'm powerful. I can create. This is why they always thought to themselves, like, why is she so calm? Because if you take a house from me, I'm just going to get another house and another house and another house. If I lose a car, I'm going to get another car and another car and another car. If that's what I want. Whatever it is, how do you think it was created in the first place? With hard work. With being able to read the signs, with being in alignment. You know, I understand my process. What people think is just so simple, I understand my process. And so they thought, okay, if we cloak into her energy and then we just do this one thing, we write something down, then it's supposed to happen. It doesn't work that way. There is a process. A lot of hard work goes behind these things. It's not magic like that. It really isn't. As you can see, as they can see, it doesn't work like that for me. That's not the way it works. But anyways, number 5, get as many hands involved as possible. People started noticing what was happening to them after getting involved in this. Whether it was, well, I just said a couple of words, or I just went to the store, I was just sitting outside of the store, I didn't bother her. People started noticing what was happening, and people didn't want involvement anymore. It started getting hard to get people, and so they would bully people. So his name in Toronto is done. His reputation is done for. God doesn't just do things, God shows me too. I'm telling you, I've seen him be slandered. And they tried not to say it in English, but I'm pretty sure they said, I don't even know what language it is, but I'm pretty sure they said, she said he has HIV. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. My daughter heard it too, actually. It's crazy. You'd think saying something in another language would save you, right? It's crazy how God works. Positive, I heard it. And these are the same people being very polite, rolling the red carpet, looking in my eyes, shaking my hands, and saying thank you. Because eventually you don't have to defend yourself. Eventually people see who's a liar and who's not, who's evil and who's not. People start seeing how things work and what's truly going on. It's worked like that my entire life. People attack me and I just let it be. Mostly because again, it's an energy thing. I just don't want to give of my energy to nonsense. I get tired. I used to let things get away all the time because I just didn't have the energy. But people will always eventually see, and people have finally seen John Ferreira for exactly who he truly is. It has been a long time coming, and I have truly waited forever to see this day happen. What has felt like forever, because he was getting away with murder. So now what he can't accomplish in Toronto, which is get people to hate me, get people to come around me and all of this, I have 1 minute, 30 seconds left. So I'm going to wrap it up quickly. He's realized now in all of this that he only hurt himself, that they're trapped and they're binded to whatever it is that they wanted to do to me, and that it was not worth it. It was an illusion, and that they would never have it. This is not the way the contract works. It's not one of those you can just steal. I just want to say, before I go, I have a minute left. I do believe that when you're gang stalked, because so many people are gang stalked, I do believe it's a rite of passage for a lot of people. I do believe that not everybody makes it. It's a trial, but it doesn't mean that you're going to make it. They're using live ammunition. Imagine training for the military and they're using live ammunition. You may or may not make it. I just want to send love to you. If you didn't ascend, you did your best. This is a very hard thing to do. You didn't have the necessary information. God loves you still. God will always take care of you for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter. This was mission impossible. You put up an amazing fight, and to those still in the fight, please, the only thing you have to do is not give up. Just make it to the specific date. We don't know when, but just make it. Thank you. I have 6 seconds left. Sending love to everyone, and check out my YouTube, God's Way 1019.